Desert Oracle Radio, the voice of the desert.
Night has fallen on the desert. The desert spring is here. And that means the bugs are coming back. And that means we will be soon seeing, if not already, a lot more of our beloved desert friend, the wonderful, wonderful Cactus Wren. The American Southwest is blessed with so many weird sorts of birds. We've got the crested lord of the desert mistletoe, the phainopepla. We've got the owls who hoot, hoot, hoot so hauntingly in the night. All the curious corvids, too. The big ravens, the scrub jays, the pinion jays. And the occasional murder of crows here for the weekend from L.A. And we've got the delightful roadrunner, which is the ground cuckoo. Geococcyx, that's its real name. That's not a dirty word either. Read a book. And then there's the largest wren of the United States. Everything about a wren times 10. The great entertainer of the desert, the Cactus Wren. The wren, along with a few of its European lookalikes, commonly called wrens, is known for its mischievous wisdom, its trickster street smarts. The wren appears in folklore and fables that date back thousands of years. Aristotle knew the fable of the bird king, the tale of the eagle and the wren, and so did Pliny the Elder 4 centuries later. In medieval times, the story was usually told like this. A great congress of the birds was called to choose the king of all birds. Robin and raven, owl and osprey, all the world's birds gathered in the woodland clearing and decided whoever could fly the highest should be elected their king. The other birds fell back and behind as the great eagle reached the highest elevation and loudly proclaimed, "I am the king of all birds." But from the eagle's plumage, the clever little wren flew up and above its exhausted host. And so the wren was crowned king of the birds, for its cunning intelligence had beaten the proud eagle's great strength. The ceremonial role of the wren within Celtic, Gaelic, Scandinavian, and especially rural English society was of particular fascination to Sir James George Fraser in his monumental folkloric study, The Golden Bough. To Fraser, the annual hunting of the wren was nothing less than a winter solstice reenactment of the prehistoric ritual known as sacrificing the king, the murder of the king of the wood. And Sir Fraser illustrates this in a section titled Processions with Sacred Animals. Quote, by many European peoples, the ancient Greeks and Romans, the modern Italians, Spaniards, French, Germans, Dutch, Danes, Swedes, English, and Welsh, the wren has been designated the king, the little king, the king of birds, the hedge king, and so forth. and has been reckoned amongst those birds which it is extremely unlucky to kill. In England, it is supposed that if anyone kills a wren or harries its nest, that person will break a bone or meet with some dreadful misfortune within the year. Sometimes, the killing of a wren is thought to bring about cows who give bloody milk. At St. Donat in Brittany, people believe that if children touch the young wrens in the nest, those children will suffer from the fire of St. Lawrence. That is, from pimples on the face, legs, and so on. Don't touch the baby birds. In other parts of France, it is thought that if a person kills a wren or harries its nest, his house will be struck by lightning, or that the fingers with which he did the deed will shrivel up and drop right off, or at least be maimed, or that his cattle will suffer in their feet. Notwithstanding such beliefs, the custom of annually killing the wren has prevailed widely. On the Isle of Man, down to the 18th century, the custom was observed on Christmas Eve, or rather Christmas morning. On the 24th of December, towards evening, all the servants got a holiday. They did not go to bed all night, but rambled about till the bells rang in all the churches at midnight. When prayers were over, they went to hunt the wren. And having found one of these birds, they killed it and fastened it to the top of a long pole with its wings extended. Thus they carried it in procession to every house, chanting the following rhyme. We hunted the wren for Robin the Bobbin. We hunted the wren for Jack of the Can. We hunted the wren for Robin the Bobbin. We hunted the wren for everyone. That doesn't really rhyme at the end. But whatever, they've been out all night.
Desert Oracle Radio.
Back to Sir Fraser. Quote, when they had gone from house to house and collected all the money they could, they carried the wren in procession to the parish churchyard, where they made a grave and buried it with the utmost solemnity, singing dirges over her in the Manx language, in which they call her Nell, after which Christmas begins. The burial over, the company outside the churchyard formed a circle and danced to music. In Ireland, the wren is still hunted and killed by the peasants on Christmas Day, and on the following day, which is St. Stephen's, the wren is carried about, hung by the leg in the center of two hoops, crossing each other at right angles, and a procession made in every village of men, women, and children, singing an Irish catch, announcing him to be the king of all birds. And down to the present time, the hunting of the wren still takes place in parts of Leinster and Connacht. On Christmas Day, or St. Stephen's Day, the boys hunt and kill the wren, fasten it to the middle of a mass of holly and ivy on the top of a broomstick, and then on St. Stephen's Day, go about with it from house to house, singing, the wren, the king of all birds. St. Stephen's Day was caught in the furs. Although he is little, his family is great. I pray you, good lady, give us a drink. Money or food, such as bread, butter, eggs, etc., were given unto them, upon which they feasted in the evening. In the first half of the 19th century, similar customs were still observed in various parts of the south of France, where every year on the first Sunday of December, the young people of the street Saint-Jean used to go out of the town armed with sticks, with which they beat the bushes, looking for wrens. The first to strike down one of these birds was proclaimed the king. Then they returned to the town in procession, headed by the king, who carried the wren on a pole. On the evening of the last day of the year, the king and all who had hunted the wren marched through the streets of town to the light of torches, with drums beating and fifes playing in front of them. At the door of every house they stopped, and one of them wrote with chalk on the door, "Long live the king." On the morning of the 12th day, the king again marched in procession with great pomp, wearing a crown and a blue mantle and carrying a scepter. In front of him was borne the wren, fastened to the top of a pole, which was adorned with a verdant wreath of olive, of oak, and sometimes of mistletoe grown on an oak. After hearing the high mass in the parish church of St. Vincent, surrounded by his officers and guards, the king visited with the bishop, and with the mayor and the magistrates and the chief inhabitants of town, collecting money to defray the expenses of the royal banquet which took place in the evening, and wound up with a dance. The parallels between this custom of hunting the wren and some others of those which we have considered seems too close to allow us to doubt that they all belong to the same circle of ideas. The worshipful animal is killed with special reverence once a year, and before or immediately after death he is promenaded from door to door, that each of his worshippers may receive a portion of the divine virtues that are supposed to emanate from the dead or dying god. Religious processions of this sort must have had a great place in the ritual of the European peoples in prehistoric times, if we may judge from the numerous traces of them which have survived in folk custom. And that again is from The Golden Bough. Oh, it's a Bible of folklore worldwide. It's worth reading if you haven't, and it's worth returning to from time to time. Because these small traces of the ancient and prehistoric world still show up in our time, in our world, and it's good to know how to spot them today. The English folk song revivalist Steel Eye Span brought this custom to the modern world of music in 1971 with their second album, Pleased to See the King, a song of great vintage that matches the pleading of the Wren boys as they go from house to house, demanding a penny, quote, for to bury the king, end quote. When the coin is turned over, the wren is displayed for the residents. The Chieftains' 1991 album, The Bells of Dublin, covers similar territory. It's even got a song by Elvis Costello, who contributes a new variation on the theme with a song called The St. Stephen's Day Martyrs. The Wren song has been part of Appalachian music for centuries, having come over with successive waves of English, Scot, and Irish mountain folk. And they mostly settled in the range of the Carolina wren, common to the mountains and valleys of the American South and all the way up into New York State. From the Pacific Northwest to the southern end of Mexico, it is the canyon wren we most commonly hear and occasionally see way up there in the cliffs. But in our arid southwest, from the Mojave and way down to the Chihuahuan deserts, it is the big, bold cactus wren who steals the show. Nesting in elaborately constructed oval homes within the protective spikes of saguaro or thorny chaparral and catclaw. Here in the Mojave, the cactus wren is most commonly found in cholla of good height, at least 3 feet high and preferably even higher. Why that requirement? Well, to be out of reach of ground-dwelling predators such as snakes and foxes. A taller cactus also prevents coyotes from nosing in for an egg or two, or maybe a whole wren for dessert. The best way to see more cactus wrens is to make sure you protect your native vegetation around your house, on your property. The destruction of cholla, in particular, has caused a dramatic decrease in the number of cactus wrens. Although they aren't yet in danger of extinction, their numbers have gone down by as much as 66%. Still, the intentional killing of any songbird is a crime, both here and in the British Isles, where the few surviving St. Stephen's Day wren festivities make use of a taxidermied king of the birds, rather than one hunted every year by the local wren boys. House cats are the mass murderers when it comes to wrens and all songbirds. So if you insist on keeping such a creature as a pet, a cat, I mean, not a wren, do yourself and the birds a favor by keeping the cat inside, at least during the daylight hours when the birds are active, foraging on the ground, hanging around your screen door, foraging close to your house. There is nothing more satisfying than watching the lively, loudmouth cactus wren methodically work over your patio, your barbecue grill, your spider-filled outdoor chairs. Watch in awe as the cactus wren pulls wriggling centipedes from under your doormat, or persistent houseflies from your window screens. Hail to the king of the birds. This is Desert Oracle Radio. If you're in the high desert around Joshua Tree, Yucca Valley, 29 Palms, Pioneer Town, Johnson Valley, Wonder Valley, wow, we got a lot of valleys, but no rivers. That means they're not really valleys. They're basins. Well, if you're anywhere around there, you might be listening on KCDZ 107.7 FM on your radio dial. You know how to use a radio, don't you? And the soundscapes, these soundscapes, they are by our own Red, Blue, Black, Silver on Desert Oracle Radio. Friends, I went down to the post office box the other day, and in with the usual stuff. I don't really need that much, like the 7th Uline catalog of the season and threatening notices from vague agencies. I found some stuff that was pleasing to see, pleasing to open and read. Especially because some of you sent some checks to support the show, which is nice. Like Atlas and Joshua Tree. Thank you, Atlas. And Robert in Yucca Valley. Thanks to both of you, not just for the check, but for the nice handwritten note. And the French family in Fayetteville, Georgia. You know, anything that happens in Fayetteville is bound to be strange or at least entertaining. That's called the Fayette factor. We've talked about it many times on this show. One of those things to tuck away in the back of your mind when you see something on the news, in the paper that seems sort of beyond the pale in terms of weirdness. Now, beyond the pale, if you've wondered, that's a term related to the area around British-controlled Dublin long, long ago. Anyway, if you see something that's beyond the pale in terms of weirdness, take a look. What's the name of the county? More often than not, the place name, the highway name, the creek, the county is going to be called Lafayette or some variation thereof. No lie. I also got a nice letter from Bob Pomeroy out in Austin, Texas. And this came in an old manila envelope that was printed with a picture of a cowboy, a cartoon of a cowboy saying, "Howdy, partner, postmaster, etc." And the P.S. on this letter, which I'll mention before I even read a little of the letter, it says, the cartoon on the envelope was drawn by Merle Travis. The great Merle Travis. Yes, he sometimes sold drawings to the Potley Studios company. And the enclosed postcard is also a Potley Studios product. They made all kinds of Old West graphic design. Dear Ken Lane, longtime subscriber to Desert Oracle and avid listener to Desert Oracle Radio, I have recently been diving into your archives. I want to tell you how much I enjoyed your November 27, 2019 episode about Spade Cooley, the Willow Springs Killer. I especially enjoyed your great survey of Western Swing that makes up the first half of the show. It's a subject of interest to me for a couple of reasons. A few years ago, I decided to try my hand at learning to play the steel guitar, specifically the non-pedal 8-string steel guitar, favored weapon of many Western swingers. Any self-respecting non-pedal 8 player better know steel guitar rag, panhandle rag, Texas Playboy rag, San Antonio Rose, and more. So I have been steeped in all of that of late. A guy I've been taking lessons from learned straight from Herb Remington, who played for Bob Wills, and on many a Starday Records Hillbilly Boppers. He wrote Boot Heel Drag and Remington Ride. When I got tabs for these tunes, I saw that they were copies from Herb's own hand. I realized then that, out of my sheer dumb luck, I stumbled onto a direct line of Texas Western Swing steel guitar. It's coming along. Practice, practice. I was also glad to hear you mention Nick Tosh's book, Country, the biggest music in America. Nick was a personal acquaintance of mine from New York City days. At one point, about 12 years ago, I helped to catalog his archival papers. All best to you in the Mojave Wilderness. Kind regards, Bob Pomeroy, Austin, Texas. From Amboy to Zzyzx and all across the previously mentioned Mojave Wilderness, this is Desert Oracle Radio. You can find our podcast online by taking your personal surveillance device and asking it to play Desert Oracle Radio, and also to record everything you do and say every day. I'm seeing a bunch of bozos in their camper vans that cost more than a starter home, parking in people's dirt driveways and on private land and etc. Please go to a campground, folks, or go to the Bureau of Land Management dispersed camping area. It's northeast of Joshua Tree. It's on every map. But enjoy your time here. I like to see happy people out on the trails, not the trails I go on, but maybe in a documentary about Joshua Tree or something. And this is the time of year when I like to be a tourist and go somewhere else, anywhere else. Once the work is done, of course, we must keep busy and always answer any email requests for the details of our work week. Why, just in the past week alone, I've seen about 109 birds out the window. And I've heard that old owl in the tree next to my bedroom pretty much every night this week. That's something I got done. I took out the recycling. And I read 2 or 3 books that have nothing to do with making a living. That's an unfortunate use of time, I guess, but it's the choice I've made. Good night from the voice of the desert.